cut up animals and would have stopped with them and not have moved on to human beings.
We have a sense that Jeffrey Dahmer is very different from the rest of us. This is a one in a many-million case. Is that right?
Well, it's true that the things that Mr. Dahmer did are things that only 1 in a million or less will do. But it's not true that he's very different from the rest of us. The only thing different about Mr. Dahmer from large numbers of people is that his particular sexual interests go beyond the pale of what most of us can understand.
He learned in growing up how different he was from others in his sexual makeup. Imagine being a youngster discovering that you're having recurrent thoughts about relating in an intimate way to corpses.
How in the world could anybody get into a position where he commits these kinds of crimes? Do you find anything in his childhood?
I think the most significant aspect of his childhood has to do with the particular things that he was thinking about around the time that he was becoming sexually interested and alive. Among the things are a pleasant liaison with another adolescent boy.
The first time he experienced any sexual behavior was when he was approximately 14 years old, and that was with a young boy who lived across the street. They mutually consented and got together on several occasions in a treehouse where they simply kissed and touched each other's body.
Around the same time that was happening, he had become interested through a high school dissection project in dissecting animals.
When you're dissecting these pigs, you're studying this. Interesting. You see the heart, the intestines, the lungs, the bone structure, this kind of thing. I'm not sure Jeff really cared about any of the conceptually interesting things about the fetal pig. I think he was more getting pleasure out of taking it apart.
And he began bringing home dead animals from the roadside, which he would dissect and keep the bones, trying to preserve them. That was something he was spending many hours doing at a time when perhaps other boys were out playing baseball or beginning to spend more time talking about girls or stealing a copy of Playboy from their father. For Jeffrey Dahmer, that period in which he was developing sexually is one where his thoughts often were of taxidermy, of dissection, of biological specimens.
He also stated that during the time he was cutting up animals, he would fantasize what it would be like to cut up a human being. He realized at this early age that his homosexual fantasies and his fantasies of killing and dismembering human beings were interlocked.
It's important to emphasize that this is not about homosexuality. Jeffrey Dahmer could have been heterosexual, and if in addition to being heterosexual he still had recurrent necrophilic fantasies, he might have been out there killing women rather than men.
The poor kid at 14, 15 wanting to make love to dead bodies, and that would be sexually exciting. I mean, who in the world would you tell that to? I know in my own life I would never tell it to anybody. I'd have to live with that.
Dahmer turned to alcohol for relief. By the time he was 16, he was a heavy drinker, going on long binges.
I was 16. I was not allowed to date, especially car dates. This was my very first date. My mother made me go because it was his only senior prom, and he wanted to take me, and my girlfriend was going. And they more or less talked me into it. They had told me the exact words, a couple hours is not going to kill you. Go ahead and go to the prom with them. He asked me the day before the prom, and he came up and said, Mike said you said you'd go to the prom with me. Is that right? That's exactly how he asked me. He didn't. I knew a week ahead of time, but he was afraid to ask me. He was polite. He did act kind of goofy, but he didn't look like he had a mean bone in his body. He wasn't two-faced like a lot of kids were. He didn't pick on nobody. He didn't cause no trouble as far as starting fights goes, but he took a lot of ribbon from other kids because he wasn't considered good-looking, and he was kind of nerdy, and he really didn't quite fit in. And he did things for attention, and people just really made fun of him. It kind of hurt him, I think. He came to the house, and he picked me up, knocked on the door. My dad right away got to check him out, you know, tell him what time we got to be home and this and that. And my dad still wasn't too enthused about this. He didn't want me dating. Came time to pin the corsage on, and my mother had to do it because he was going so slow because he was afraid he's going to stick me with the pin. I mean, ha-ha. I think he was scared to death to touch me or something, maybe. I don't know. We didn't want to take pictures. My mother, dragged us over there to make us take the pictures. Then after we had dinner, we went over to the prom hall. While we were there for a while, he disappeared on me. And I thought he went to the bathroom. Then the time got longer, and I thought, well, geez, he's not in the bathroom, you know. What the heck happened? Here he came back. They wouldn't let him back in because he had gone to McDonald's. Because he was so nervous at dinner, he didn't eat enough. He was still hungry. He had the McDonald's bags to prove it. Show me, here's the cheeseburger wrappers. I saved them so in case, you know, he didn't believe where I was. He did apologize. He felt bad. He was real upset, you know. Yeah, he said because he thought he embarrassed me. And I said, no, I was fine. You know, stuff happens. And then he took me home. I think the whole night was over by maybe 11 o'clock, 12.
Now, suddenly, Dahmer's life began to change completely. In the middle of a brutal divorce battle, Jeffrey's father had moved out. Weeks before the divorce was finalized, Mrs. Dahmer took Jeffrey's brother David and relocated out of state. Just 18 years old, Jeffrey was left alone at the house on West Bath Road.
He states that it was at this time that he remembers having strong desires of not wanting people to leave him. He stated that it was also at this time that he began hating sleeping alone at night. The suspect states that he began having fantasies of killing people to overcome the feelings he had of